and it's lovely to be with you all this evening. So I'm going to explain a little bit about my context, because it's a bit different from, I imagine, a lot of your contexts. So I lead a church community called Church Without Walls, which is a new pioneer community in Milton Keynes, and we don't have a building. Pre-pandemic, we met 4 Sundays a month with the following sort of pattern. We had cafe church, forest church, dinner church, and quiet church. So we had these 4 different types of worship that had a 4-week cycle. We used a local school for some of those meetings, and there were community spaces and the outdoors. So when the pandemic hit, I think the first response for us was about it needed to be relational, because everything we did was so focused on relationships. So Zoom was the obvious way forward. And initially we didn't record it at all. We just went onto Zoom, did the service together. And if you couldn't make it on Zoom, you couldn't make it. Over time, I did use Facebook Live from Zoom a bit. Don't know how successfully, but we did do that a bit. And I have occasionally recorded and then shared later, but fairly, we're not super tech. The Zoom helped things be very relational. And I have to share this with Jenny here. This has to be my first slide. Now, I'm hoping that, so I have to show this little first slide of things. Is this working all right? I'm hoping. This is the usual way I do things in church, but that was slightly.
Yep, all good.
Good, great, excellent. So there you got a lovely picture of Jenny dressed up as a Christingle. So we started with just everything on Zoom. And this was a lovely interactive Christingle from last Christmas. And I found that one of the great things about Zoom is that it made it very easy for people to participate. It shared and has shared the same slightly unprofessional, relaxed, slightly chaotic way that we have led church. So on Zoom, people can still unmute themselves and interrupt you in the middle of doing something. You can get different people to do readings, and you can ask them on the day. So we could be there and I could say, would anybody like to do the reading? I'll share it on the screen. So it had all that sense. But today we're talking about hybrid. We're talking about that moving back to online and in person. But I just wanted to give you that little context. So we moved back to in-person worship over a year ago, in and out, because a lot of our stuff was outside. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is doing stuff outside and how we managed to do that in a hybrid fashion. The first services, and not surprisingly, that we came back together for in that pattern that I said, was Forest Church. And Forest Church, we have never tried to do online as well. Well, I say never. I did try to record bits and pieces of one, but that was not a good idea. So Forest Church remains a simply in-person gathering once a month. And that's how it is. Easter Sunday represents probably our first proper hybrid meeting, I would say. And as you can see, for that, we used our local churchyard. We've got a Conservation Trust church nearby, because in terms of restrictions, you needed to be on church ground. The technology was simply a laptop, the laptop I'm using now, stuck on a little one of those projector stands. You've probably got some of those old projector stands, stuck on the projector stand facing me, and the PA plugged in through it, which meant that we could have people who were on Zoom doing the readings on the day, because they would be going straight from Zoom out onto the PA across there. And then also what I then did, and which was a pattern that I would use for lots of things, is I would then use PowerPoint for prayers. So this is just, I'll give you a tiny little flavour of how that would work.
I prayed for peace. I prayed 1,000,000 times over. I prayed for the release of the many people who suffer. And I've prayed for love between sister and...
So while that was happening, the people online would have, I've just given you a little tiny snap of that, they would have different images with prayers and things to pray for. And then the people in person, you can see, would have some sort of interactive prayer. So we'd be doing prayer flags, or on Easter Sunday, we'd be putting flowers on the cross. So you'd have, what you'd basically have is sort of these two complementary experiences that would be going on. So you would have for the, the people who were online, they would have the sound and the sight. You know, they would have images. So I'll be creating videos, sound and sight for the people who are online. And then the people who are in person would be having the same sound, but would be having a different interactive prayer that they would do. So I began to build up these complementary services that would be happening, that we would be outdoors and people would be having one experience online and a complementary experience in person. As we began to do more in-person services, and this is back a year ago, it was a bit chillier under the gazebos there, and we started, as well as Forest Church, we started having a cafe church gazebo style once a month, and we'd have 3 services in order to get everybody, so you'd have 18 people at each. And then I would offer the 11:15 to be online with Zoom as well. And it would be, you know, that similar sort of thing of having a complementary thing is going on. This is us in the slightly warmer weather in June this year. And so as we've done in the churchyard, you would have readings done by people who are on Zoom, because if they were doing the readings on Zoom, then both the people at home could hear it and the people in person could hear it. And then I would use music embedded in PowerPoints, little videos like the little snippet I gave you. So then you'd hear the music in person, and you'd be hearing the music and images at home as well. The other thing that enabled us to do was that this is when we had one of the baptisms that we had under the gazebo. Godparents, quite a few of them couldn't be there. We only could have limited numbers. This was May this year. The laptops behind me on the stand directed in the right direction. So all those at home could see the family, could hear the promises, and then the godparents making their promises on Zoom could just unmute themselves. And because they're plugged into the speaker, everybody could hear them making their promises. So it's really, really low tech. You know, it was very low tech, but it worked. It enabled people to sort of connect in this way. We had a dedication where we did similar, and actually it was amazing because a grandmother in Australia was able to Zoom in and be part of it. This picture, not a great picture, but it's just trying to show how low tech it was really. This is a picture from one of our church at the churchyard services, like the Easter Sunday one. And you can see what I mean. You can see where the laptop's sitting, just facing me. It's simply the laptop microphone. I haven't got any other microphone. The microphone I'm wearing is going through the PA. So in terms of the microphone for Zoom, I didn't have anything. I still don't. I just have the laptop and it picks up whatever it picks up. Big issue, the big struggle for me in hybrid services, and this may strike you surprising because you may think it's the opposite, was the sunshine. The sunshine was a real problem because I couldn't use my little normal clicker that you'd use to change PowerPoints because you can't use them in Zoom. I expect AJ will tell me later where I can, but it's too late now. And if the sun is shining on your computer screen, it's really, really difficult to work out where your mouse is and how to change the slides. So it, you know, it worked, but you'd have me peering at the screen at various points as I tried to do that. We did begin to, I found a way of strapping a large umbrella to the little stand that gave enough shadow so that then it worked a little bit. And the other issue, of course, of that hybridness outside was that while those on Zoom could speak and be part of it, the people in person, they couldn't hear anybody from the congregation speaking because they were too far away from the microphone. Also, live music, of which you can see we used occasionally, was okay, but it wasn't brilliant in our very simple way of doing it. Once restrictions began to lift, we moved to having our refreshments at Cafe Church and free seating and discussions. And then just this month, we've moved back in person in a building. That's our first in a building. And I have to say, we are no longer, for Cafe Church, we are not staying hybrid, because we cannot, in that context, it's felt too much of a compromise to do it well. The other service that we've offered in the two-way, and this is much more like a traditional service, and therefore it works far more easily, has been Quiet Church. I'm going to see if I could just move this. You don't really need to see a picture of me, but this is just, you see, oh, I don't know. For everything, there is a time and a season, a time for busyness and a time to be still, a time to do and a time to be. Loving God, bring a sense of balance to our busy lives. So, a time to compose myself. So there you can see I'm just sitting in the church, the building that we hire for Quiet Church, and because it's very static, the laptop simply on the table next to me. You can angle it at a level so that you can see the cross behind. I can speak to the people, as you can see, I'm speaking past the screen to the group who are gathered there. In our Quiet Church, we have about 10 minutes of contemplative quiet prayer, where people can move around to prayer stations. At that point, I simply share a video, and the meditative music that the people in person are listening to is the same one as the ones at home are listening to. And that is going to continue as a hybrid service, because it's simple. It works really well. We can do it easily. It has the same way of people being able to access it at home as they can online. And I will get people to do their readings on Zoom, because that works really well, because then that comes through the speaker and everybody can hear it. So that is, we are going to start. We have only just restarted communion at Quiet Church, and that'll be slightly more challenging, but I think it's simply where I put the laptop in terms of angling it. So that's just a little snapshot, and that's the end of my little slide ones. That's a little snapshot. Is in this, what camera did you? I didn't use a camera. I used what's on my laptop. So basically, I put my laptop, the camera on my laptop. I had no tech at all. Everything is simply my normal laptop plugged in with nothing else at all. So we're very untechnical. And, there was no high-tech stuff in any of it. Sometimes actually we would do it on our phones. We didn't always even use a laptop. So sometimes on the church when we used the churchyard, one of the services I started inside, and then we used the laptop inside, but then actually we wanted to go around the churchyard. So then we just switched to have Zoom on the phone, and I just held the phone as I was talking and showing things. And also sometimes when people did prayers, if they would do joining the prayers and leading them from home, they would just use it, because most of ours would do Zoom on their phones, not on laptops. And so then they would use that. So it's been, trying to do the hybrid has been challenging, without a shadow of a doubt. But I've also, for me, we're not part of it is this relational thing, and so I've not worried about, oh goodness, there's a little techie glitch, because that's part of who we are. Yeah. And that has just.
May I interrupt you, Ruth?
Yeah, please do. Exactly.
Bless you. Thank you so much for that sharing. That was really, really a lovely glimpse into how you have got through these last 18 months and thrived in it. And we're going to go to Lucy. So thanks ever so much, Lucy.
Good evening, everybody. Hi, I'm just going to get my pad. There we go. Hopefully you can see my picture. Can you? All good? Excellent. Okay. So greetings from Woking. The week before lockdown happened, we were aware that things were potentially going to become more difficult. Communal worship may not be able to happen. I've shown you there a picture of just how the church looks on a particularly busy Sunday. I would say we're not that busy every week. But on that last Sunday before lockdown, we had an adult baptism planned, and we also had a church meeting planned, which agreed the removal of the pews that you can see in that picture. Now, I can't tell you how long ago it was I started the journey of trying to remove these pews. And the timing and God's hand in all of this was absolutely extraordinary, because it meant the pews could be removed without fuss during lockdown, and all sorts of creative things are now possible because of the space that's being created, not least the fact actually that we're a vaccine centre at the minute. But on that Sunday, we knew that people would start to choose to stay away. So we decided to put an iPhone on a tripod, and we live streamed from our Facebook page. The sound wasn't great, but it worked. And that really began our journey of choosing to live stream through Facebook rather than the Zoom journey that many churches had been on. By the next week, my daughter and I, who you can see in that picture, had a cough. So we stayed home and we decided to set up church in our front room and live stream from there with the help of my husband and our 4 children. It was a bit of an adventure. We used Facebook Live again, and we decided to do that because we felt we would reach a wider audience. Again, you can see a phone on a tripod there. We actually used my daughter's phone because it was better than mum and dad's phone. We plugged in a simple microphone. We put together a PowerPoint of the liturgy and the hymns, and we were able to connect that onto our TV screen, which was behind us. You can see a picture of the kids there. There was a real air of excitement as we were able to connect and offer a familiar service full length with all the usual elements. It's just that it was us in our front room and we were talking to a camera. But we made it as interactive as possible by asking people to leave comments on Facebook. We set up a prayer wall and we wrote requests on it as they came in during the services or during the week. We tried to make the family time, that's the kind of all age talk near the beginning of the service. So we tried to make that as interactive as we could. So we sent people things to find in their houses. We zoomed in a family each week to chat to, and their picture would appear on that screen behind us where you can see the hymn words. We also zoomed in our church secretary to do the notices, so it felt very familiar for people, different people to lead the prayers, and even to meet 1 or 2 of our international worshippers. And for the younger members who would usually have had junior church groups, we set up what we called a sermon challenge each week, which was emailed out in advance. So my children during that part of the service would go off to the kitchen to do that and come back and share what they'd done. And those at home shared photos on Facebook of what they'd done. After the service, we decided to have a Zoom coffee time, which was quite well attended. It enabled us to see one another face to face, to chat, which of course isn't possible when you're just live streaming a service. We were blown away by the numbers of people watching, and I know lots of churches have found this. People who hadn't been to church for a long time, people who had lapsed, people who had never been to church at all were stumbling across that live stream feed and were getting in touch with us. They were connecting. And I think the fact that everyone was looking for connection and community at that stage really added to this. And the post-church Zoom time evolved into 2 separate Zooms actually after the worship, one to meet and chat and one to meet and pray. So these services at home evolved over time, and after a while we decided we needed to up our game a little bit. So we put blackout blinds in our lounge to make the picture better. We ordered a better microphone. We got more adventurous. One of our pianists recorded accompaniment for the hymns to boost the music, which up until then had just been Justin on his guitar there, Noah, our son, banging that box-shaped thing you can see in the left of the screen. It's called a cajon, and the kids singing. One of our, this is a picture of, was sent in to us on Facebook by one of the families of one of the little ones watching the service and joining in. So we encouraged as much interaction as possible and as much sharing as possible. During all of this, one of our members, Alice, got in touch to say she'd done some training in Makaton, and particularly in faith signing. So we introduced a sign of the week and we began to learn to use Makaton. And this has evolved massively and it's become a real part of our worship now. It was great when people were worshipping from home, and now we find that those worshipping from home, those worshipping in the church, they're all sharing it, and we'll show you a clip of that later. One thing I do just want to say is that before COVID, I resisted attempts in the church to put the audio of my sermons onto our website because I was nervous about being too exposed. And the irony of that is that within the space of a week, I was online with my whole family from my front room. So, you know, God works in mysterious ways. Of course, there were a lot of challenges to doing it like this. We spent most Saturdays getting ready. I relied on the cooperation of my family. There are a few videos where you can see a few grumpy teenage faces. But one project, which was really hard work, but also a lot of fun, was to journey through the book of Acts. We felt we needed something to get our teeth into as a whole church family. So we set up a puppet show in our dining room. And each week we covered part of the story of Acts in a live puppet show as part of the service. And I'll show you a clip of how that worked and indeed how it didn't work later on. Keeping everyone connected with the worship was a huge challenge. And I know that there's another little picture of the children, and I'll just stop the share there. Keeping everyone connected with worship was a huge challenge. Many of our older people were not on Facebook and are actually really wary of Facebook. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that. So we started putting the link directly on our website, which meant people could access it there. But we also put recordings onto DVDs, we put the audio onto CDs, and then we delivered those during the week. And we've got lovely stories of our pastoral worker, David, delivering second-hand DVD players through windows to people and then leaning in to try and give them instructions about how to plug it in. It was a very important time, actually, to try and keep everybody connected. We were particularly concerned about the children and them missing out on communal activities. So we began what we called a family Zoom. And this carried on until fairly recently, actually. It was from 10 till 10:30 on a Sunday morning, and it meant the younger ones could all see each other before the service started and have a lot of fun together. While all this was going on, we were thinking about returning to the church building. Lots of people were live streaming from their churches already, and we were thinking, well, how's this going to work long term? Because we knew that hybrid church was here to stay. So we actually had a plan in place before COVID to upgrade our AV system. And a secondary part of that plan was to install live streaming equipment, but we thought that would be considerably further down the line because of the cost. But of course, COVID changed everything, and we brought the whole project forward, and the work took place in summer 2020 while we were still live streaming from home. It was a bit of a wing and a prayer because we didn't have all the money in place that we needed to do this, but we put out an appeal, we got a bridging loan offer from the synod, and amazingly it all came together. And that meant that in September, and I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again, we were able to return to the church with this newly installed equipment. And we had a team of people who could operate it and help out. And so we live streamed from the church without a congregation, actually right through till Pentecost 2021 this year. And it was such a relief at this stage not to have to do the tech ourselves. And obviously the quality of the live stream improved massively. You might be able to see on the wall there a little white camera. We've got two cameras installed in the church now, and these large screens at the front and down the sides. And once we were back at the church, we were able to use a software platform called Caster, which enables us to stream simultaneously onto YouTube and Facebook, with the YouTube feed embedded on our website. I want to highlight that there are lots of times when it went wrong, and it still goes wrong. And sometimes BT decide to dig up the road outside our church on a Sunday morning and we lose our internet connection and all sorts of things like that. So those joining online have their experience disrupted. A usual congregation for us would have been 160 people before COVID. Now we're back to about 120 people worshipping in person and a good number still online. One of the most exciting but challenging things now for us is to work out how we integrate those in the building and those online, and what kind of experience both groups of people get. We know that our online presence has raised our profile and resulted in new regular attendees and members of the church family. But I think there are two really important things about our live streams now that I want to highlight. One is that in continuing to do so, some of the people we reach are just people for whom we are sowing seeds, and they might never become an active part of our church family. So it's actually a kind of bit of mission where you just let things go and let God take those seeds and plant them where he will. But the other thing is we've realized just how badly we were serving our housebound folk before, and how important it is for them to be able to experience worship in a way they never could before the pandemic and feel connected. We've also got the opposite issue, and I think this is really important to highlight, which is that there are plenty of people who could be back in church and aren't because they have a high quality live stream to watch. And I'm really aware of that, and we're thinking carefully about how to address that, and how to encourage those people who really ought to be back in church and not just treating it as a kind of consumer product that they can watch from home whilst eating their porridge in the morning. So we've set up a working group to look at some of these things. I'm going to show a little example of church from home where it went wrong because my son was dancing and pulled the wire out.
Raise a joyful shout, clap your hands and dance, set your feelings out. Whoa, hear what it's about. Christ the Lord has come to set us free. Put aside your sorrows, wipe your tears away, for a better time will come.
Hang on a sec, everybody. Toby's really scarily near the wires, and soon we're going to end up being unplugged. We're just going to pause ever so slightly. Toby,
Okay.
come and dance
Come
at
and
the front.
dance with us,
Toby's doing
Toby.
some really great expressive
Come and
dance
dance
that
with
you
us.
couldn't see.
Okay, from the top. Put aside your sorrows.
Ready?
And then AJ, if we could jump to the fourth one, which is live streaming from the church.
Day and forever, you are faithful. We will trust in yesterday, today and forever. You are the same. You never change. Yesterday, today and forever. You are faithful. We will trust in you.
I just wanted to show the contrast between now that I get some help at church with some quite high-tech equipment compared to what we were able to do ourselves at home. Thank you.
Lucy, thank you ever so much. Thank you so much for that. And so, Andrew, we're going to come to you now, Andrew. If you could, we're so delighted to see you, and we can imagine that it feels quite difficult and stressful, but we're pleased to see you, and we'll pass over to you with great thanks.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. But I think that the challenge, are you hearing me?
Yep, all good.
The challenge that has been there for me is I am low tech. I can basically do PowerPoint from my laptop. Yes, I can preach, I can lead the service, but technology was very far away from me. And lockdown was something that I found myself thrown right into the deep end without any preparations. And I can begin by acknowledging that I found my first recorded Zoom service traumatizing to watch. I haven't gathered the courage to go back to it and watch because I know how scared I was. Even the idea of not looking at your picture but looking into the microphone was something that was foreign. And it was a challenge, but I can say I was forced into having to live with it. Yes, in both my churches, Hingley and Daventry, the services are traditional. Yes, we had always, even before I came in, the services, especially the talk, being recorded and it being put on the website of the church. But this time it was different because we wanted to have the video. And I tried and I had to work, and it worked as we went into Zooming, because we tried to live stream and it wasn't working because of the internet coverage from the MANs. And then we opted to go to try and record from the church. And the church struggled until they had to update the internet at the MANs to make it possible. But what we did then was to pre-record the service on Sunday on Zoom, and then download it to the websites of both churches so that people can watch it. And then I later on discovered that not all our members of the congregations had access to internet. And that then created a problem. What do we do with the people that cannot watch the download, that cannot access the services? So somebody came up with an idea that we need to record. At least we had the recording equipment in Durban that could record the CDs, but not able to record the DVD. So we opted for that, and then delivering the CDs, only to discover that some people did not have audio CD players. And that was another challenge into hybridity, where I'm not a minister that would write a sermon in detail. I have an outline of what I'm even talking, even right now. I have an outline of what I'm going to say, and then I just paper the outline and speak as we go. And lockdown made me to have to be forced to write down the sermons so that somebody could then print out the sermons and give those people that could not access the message online or on DVD or on CDs. And then we had to do that as a hybrid church that was producing the order of services by print, and which I struggled, because on the other side, the risk assessment team was giving me an egg. No, you can give these things out, because, risk assessment says, you have got to avoid passing on of various through the exchange of objects. But that's how we worked as a hybrid church, trying to meet the needs of the people as the needs arose. And then as we became more relaxed, we developed as a pastorate, because that's the joy of lockdown. We were able to work together as one church, although two different local churches, but because of the need to do our services as one, to pre-record them and download. So combining the readers or people leading prayers from both churches, we ended up then having a Zoom meeting after the service, which was then agreed that although two different churches finished the service at different time, Hingley finishes normally 11:45, Daventry would have finished at 11. But we had to agree to say we meet at 12 so that we can just have a time to chat together and talk and probably share our experiences together. So a hybrid church or doing services helped us to become one church, though two different local churches. But what I can say is we learned how to make it as we go. There were not a lot of things that were pre-prepared, and we just had to make it as we go along. And it was a challenge, but surprisingly, I got used to the way of doing things, to say, if I can critically analyze, to say I do my mileage, I think for a month in normal times of 1,000 miles. And I think it was the joy for both my churches to say the mileage claim of the minister could be reduced to 0. But you see, people, as usual, when we're able to meet, we always want to go back to the normal, to the way we know how things go. As much as I would like to live stream, I'm working with both my churches to see what technology we need, equipment, so that we can continue to live stream, because I know we have already missed some people from our community that were able to access our services, that enjoyed the video presentation of the service. That now we have gone back to the online recorded, just only the talk without recording the hymns and the readings. So it's something that I think we need to continue with being a hybrid church in doing our meetings, in doing how we interact with one another, how we conduct the service, and willing to change always. And I think it's here to stay. I want to think that, but at the same time, I still know that there are other people who would want to see it not existing, who hate Zoom so much, who hate online service so much that they can't wait to return to the normal traditional service. But I think we have to look beyond what we view as normal and reach out as many people as we can. That will be possibly my brief presentation.
Thank you. Andrew, thank you so much, and it's so lovely to have you here. I know you're a residential in Sheffield, so it's doubly special to have you here with us. We asked Andrew, Ruth, and Lucy to focus very much on hybrid worship, but we're also aware that there are other ways of being church besides being in worship. So Lucy is now going to share with us a little bit about hybrid church. So she's going to share with you now. So thanks, Lucy.
Okay, we came across this, which I just wanted to share with everybody because I thought it was useful. It's called the Premier Hybrid Church Charter. It's produced by Premier Radio. And we came across this as a very useful tool for considering how we conduct hybrid hybrid church life beyond just worship. It's a heck of a lot to read there, and I wouldn't imagine that you'll be able to read it now, but I would encourage you to look up the Premier Hybrid Church Charter. I don't necessarily agree with everything that's on there actually, but it is incredibly useful in provoking thought about how we conduct hybrid church life and which aspects of church life we want to make hybrid. There are a few things that we've had a go at in the church, which I'd like to just share with you beyond Sunday worship. We've had a hybrid church meeting. I don't know how many of you have had church meetings. We had one on Zoom, which was fun and everybody was there. But then we decided to go for hybrid ones. So we had some people in the building and some people on Zoom. I was really surprised at how well it worked, but perhaps that was because we didn't have many controversial issues to discuss. But I wonder if that's something that you've tried and experienced, because for the first time, again, going back to housebound folk, people who are unwell, for the first time, a number of them were able to participate in the decision-making processes of the church in a way that they hadn't for a long time. So that's something we've had a go at, and we've had a request, well, lots of requests now from within the church family that all our church meetings be hybrid from now on. It is a technological challenge because you need everybody to be able to hear everything from all sides, and that can get tricky with complex debates. We've had a harvest supper hybrid. I wonder if anybody else has tried these kind of things where you we had a meal in the church. We encouraged those who didn't want to come out to have a meal at home. We had them on Zoom, and then they could share in the quiz and so on that followed, which was a lot of fun. I'm going to ask AJ to show a video. AJ, it's video 5, if that's all right. One thing we decided to do, which connected people from where they are, was to have a 24-hour Bible readathon on Zoom to raise money for Christian Aid. And it struck me that this is a really simple thing that can be done. We decided to live stream it, but you wouldn't have to. It really brought our church family together. And again, one of the key things was the housebound folk being able to participate in this in a way that they would never have been able to do had it just been something that took place in the church building. So I don't know if we've got the little video clip just to show you a tiny bit of it.
15. I'm going to hand over to Tini Collier, who is a member of our church. Actually, both Tini and Dorothy are both members of our church. Tini, you're going to do the first 15 minutes, and then Dorothy's going to take over.
Thanks, AJ. That's plenty. So that just gives you a little sort of snippet of the Zoom Bible read, which was such an inclusive thing to do. Another thing we're doing, and again, I'll just show you a slide of this, is we're doing Bible study online, and we've discovered, you may have discovered this or other better things, the Bible Society's Bible course. And I love the fact that they have adapted this so that it used to be traditionally for in-person Bible studies. Now they've adapted it so that you can do it online as well. So it's actually happening right now as we speak in Woking URC, and we've got about, I don't know, 50 people on Zoom doing this course. But some of the house groups have decided to do it as well. So in my lounge next door, my husband's house group is meeting. So there's a little collection of them, but they're joining with everybody else via Zoom to do the course. So some people are doing it individually from their home, and some people are doing it in groups gathered in front rooms. And it's such an easy course to run online. You can do it it's an easy course to run in any way, online or in person or in a hybrid manner like we are. So I'd highly recommend this course to you. We've tried to incorporate extra prayer times. We have a Thursday morning prayer group, which is now hybrid. And some people join on Zoom, some people are now back in person. And that's working incredibly well. Really, really enjoying doing that. Another thing is funerals. Having the facility to live stream from the church has transformed our ministry in terms of funerals. I'm sure you, like me, have had lots more funerals in your church, and indeed memorial services for people who died during the pandemic. And we've got relatives abroad or who can't travel or who are too ill. And by being able to live stream the service, they're being able to share that in a way that they never were before. And we're finding that really powerful. People are really appreciating that. And then one...
Oh, sorry. Yes,
sorry,
one more.
Okay, I was just going to show an example of, it's our last video, please, AJ, video 7, of our Girls Brigade. They've been meeting on Zoom for a long time and found a way to share with the wider church family what they were doing by showing a video of it in worship. And I thought this was particularly powerful. They were all cooking in their kitchens. So we'll just show this as the last video.
But the idea is that we'll have a little cross that we can put at the end of our rocky road. And at the foot of the cross, you can put your eggs. Why do you think we've got eggs?
To show new life.
Yeah. We know that after 3 days, Jesus rose again, didn't he? And so we use eggs to symbolize Jesus's coming to life. Jesus is risen. So we've got the leaves and we've got hopes and we've got the carrots to represent the donkey. We
Thanks,
have the
AJ.
cross.
That's great.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you so much. And the idea that we can do so many different things that include people. We have got some comments about how, you know, you need a hash key on your phone. But I think there are ways. What we've also heard this evening is people offering CD players. There was the plug-in of photo. I'm trying to think of what it was. A Cybox digital photo frame. So I think it's about being creative around things.